Committee to order, and the first thing that we need to do is, pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16, I need to ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in the light of the coronavirus.
So moved.
Fixing to call roll.
Have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Call roll, please, Mark.
Commissioner Stevens? I don't know if he's online or not. Commissioner Allen?
He's mouthing yes. We just hadn't heard.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries there. Okay, next thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes, and I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman, Commissioner Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have read those minutes and find everything to be in order. So my motion is to approve those minutes.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Mark, would you call roll, please?
Let Miss Allen get seated. Miss Allen? Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. All right. First up here is the investment report, and Mr. Beatty called and had a conflict, so Lisa's going to take care of this for us today.
Microphone. Lisa, I don't think you have your microphone on. I can't hear you.
Sorry. This light's green, that one was red. Okay, so I'll start again. LGIP rates in July was 0.31%, August was 0.27%. With his deal with the bank, he had 0.26 to that to get what we are actually getting on our idle funds. He took bids and awarded one with Franklin Synergy Bank for 1 year at 0.46. His information that he's got is that potentially that we will get into the 0.0 somethings before year end, and he just wanted to lock in a good rate. That's his report.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the report.
Second.
And a second, Commissioner Piercy. Is there any further discussion or questions about this? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Lisa, it's up again. Fund condition report, please.
Yes, we are reporting 2 months for you at the same time, July and August. For development tax, we received $504,000 in July and $391,500 in August. After a refund, our total for the year is $895,125 in development tax. Our cash balances at the end of August totaled $263,609,000, with $232,656,000 being operating funds, $30,953,000 being borrowed funds.
Okay, does that conclude it?
Well, if there's no questions there, on the revenue review, we've got 2 months reported right now. When you compare our revenue for July and August, which really is about only 1 month of reporting information, I'm showing green in all funds. The only concern is the drug control fund at this point in the year, with only 6.71% of the budget collected. Comparing that to the previous years, I mean, we had a 6.55% collected as of 16-17, but the rest of it had exceeded that. Still early in the year with not a whole lot of data. That's my report.
Okay, you've heard the report. We'll entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the report. Any further discussion? Mark, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, next up is our risk management financial report. We'll call on Mr. Elam. Welcome, Ed.
Good evening, Chairman P., Commissioners. I'll move right along to the tracker. You see the graph, and you move on to the tracker for August, July, and August. We did not do a July report last time, so July and August is combined in this report. For July, your revenues was $1,728,704 compared to your expenditures at $6,612,422 for a deficit of $4,883,718. Then for the month of August, you had in revenue $1,848,662 compared to expenses being $8,165,207 for a deficit of $6,316,545. I will remind you for these 2 months that the schools are on a 10-month premium basis as far as paying their premium over a 10-month instead of 12, so it's not collected for the month of July and August. And one other thing I'd like to point out to you in the month of August is that there's 5, the Cigna is paid out over every Monday, and there's 5 Mondays in the month of August, which makes that a little bit larger also. So getting to the yearly total, you'll see $51,884,319 in revenue compared to expenditures of $54,960,862 with a deficit of $3,076,543. In the month of July, we had 6,233 employees, and the month of August, 6,257. If you move down to the fiscal year, and this is where you see that number really get out of shape here because of the premium collection. They will start again in September, but for the 2 months that you see for the fiscal year, you see $3,577,366 in revenue, where you have in expenditures $14,777,630, and that leaves you with a deficit of $11,200,263. Moving to the 266 fund, and if you look at the 266 fund for the month of July, you'll see $70,988.61. The month of August, you see $33,145.15. It gives you a total of $104,133.76. Now, compared to last year, I'll remind you in the month of July, we changed our third-party administrator, and none of the bills were paid because as they were transferring information, they wanted to make sure they didn't double pay any of the bills. So none of the bills were paid in July, and then in August, you had $48,040.93. So when you look at your year-to-date, you see that we're quite a bit over compared to last year. I looked at that number because it kind of stands out, and it's pretty glaring, the difference in the two. So I went back to 2018 to see what it was for 2 months to kind of make a comparison, since it wasn't a true comparison due to none of the bills being paid in July. And in 2018, the total was $112,815. And then I went back to 2017, and the total for 2017 was $280,307. So that kind of gives you a better comparison instead of just using 2019. I will mention to you in that total for July, that was $70,000 plus, $32,510.99 was workers' comp, and then OJI was $38,477.62. And then in the month of August, workers' comp was $4,200.55, and OJI was $28,944.60. Then we look at the month of July and August for the legal fees. And if you look, again, we ran into the same thing with the third-party administrator and in legal fees. So the legal fees for July of 2019 was $856.49 compared to this year at $33,880.03. Month of August, last year was $25,460.90 compared to this year at $17,846.40. Chairman P., that concludes my report.
Okay. Are there any questions about the report? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Dodd makes a motion.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gooch. Any other discussion? Mark, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, next up is the General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendment, and I see Doug and Bill, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've got three amendments here. Two of them are 177. If we could take those together, would that be all right, Mr. Chairman?
Would be.
Okay. All right. The first one is a cleanup amendment of 177. Each July, outstanding purchase orders in this fund are liquidated, and this fund balance, which is in the fund in this account is $34,685, is committed to our capital projects. Now, these purchase orders for these projects had not been finished by June the 30th, and this amendment takes those funds out of the $34,685 and commit it to the capital projects and rebudgets it for expenditures to carry over for this year for projects that were approved last year. This year we had $2,295,278.63 in funds to rebudget. Now, the second one is a project that we did not complete. Last fiscal year, 1920, the board and the commission approved and allocated funds for the Daniel McKee school sewer tie-in, and this was an approved project to remove them from their substandard septic system. However, we were not able to, because of permitting and different things of that nature, we were unable to complete this project. So we're requesting to decrease the fund balance and increase our expenditure in the amount that was allocated to complete this project for the 2020-2021 school year and tying in Daniel McKee sewer project. So I recommend motion to approve these two amendments as presented.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson gives a motion to approve.
Second.
A second, Commissioner Allen. Any discussion? This is something we normally do at least first month of the new year. What money hadn't been spent from projects, especially on the capital projects, we normally do them at this time. So having said that, any other discussion? Hearing none, Mark, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Go ahead, Mr. Spurlock.
All right, I'm going to let Mr. Beaudry come up here and talk about our 143.
Okay, capital.
General purpose school fund amendment we need to do also. We haven't done that one yet.
Okay.
Okay, we got the, that's right, we did have the next one. I'm sorry. All right, this next one on the 141, the general purpose school amendment. This is due to changes by the state. It's basically moving money around at different locations. This amendment moves $278,715 in already budgeted revenues and $1,108,028 in already budgeted expenditures to the accounts that the State Department of Education has asked us to use. This amendment has no new revenues or no new expenditures. Motion to amend the 2020-21 general purpose school budget by moving $278,715 in already budgeted revenues and $1,108,028 in already budgeted expenditures and the accounts prescribed by the State Department of Education as presented.
Okay, so basically we have a cleanup amendments here.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Dodd makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Piercy seconds. Any other discussion? Mark, call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, now we're ready to move on. I guess, Doug, educational capital projects. Let's see where I'm at here. I've
Actually,
lost
number
my
7.
place. Yeah.
Item
Okay,
number
go
7.
ahead, Doug. Yeah.
Yes.
You have in front of you, I gave out to each of you a summary of the cafeteria operations as well as for our schools, and also a cash flow analysis and forecast for that fund. Just to give an update on the situation with our centralized cafeteria fund, and also want to thank Commissioner Allen for allowing us. I spoke with her. This did not go through Health and Ed. I spoke with her because of the timely nature of this, and she told me to, to address you tonight. Just to give you an update of where we are. As you know, we spoke about this during budget time in the spring when we focused with the budget committee and the school board on the centralized cafeteria fund, which is Fund 143. Just to give a quick update, that fund is separate from the general purpose school fund, and it operates and is funded mainly by meal charges as well as reimbursements for the meals from the USDA. This fund has a $21 million annual expenditure budget for the current fiscal year. This fund does not have a property tax levy on it, so it must be self-sufficient with the revenues that these meal reimbursements bring in. Furthermore, and this is a very, this factors into this discussion greatly. There's federal guidelines, and I gave you the U.S. law source, that forbids our school cafeteria fund, like every other public school cafeteria fund, from having a fund balance greater than 3 months average expenditures for the given school year. Of course, we comply with that federal mandate, and therefore when we went into the COVID pandemic in the spring, we did not have a large fund balance to go back on. So if you look, as far as for payroll purposes, this fund has the lowest percentage of fund balance of any fund in this county with payroll in it, percentage-wise. So, and once again, that's a federal mandate. Just to give you a quick synopsis of how we got to where we're at tonight with this request for the 1.5 advance. During the springtime and the summer of 2020, once the closing of the schools in the spring occurred due to the pandemic, we quickly obtained a waiver from the USDA to provide what's called a seamless summer option, which is what we did with the curbside pickup of meals for our students. We received a reimbursement from the USDA for each of those meals served at 26 emergency feeding sites this springtime throughout Rutherford County. During that time, through the remainder of the school year last year, our school cafeteria staff served over 250,419 meals to the children of Rutherford County from those feeding sites. On the expenditure side, school nutrition management cut all non-essential spending and postponed purchasing of any new planned equipment. The only thing that was replaced was, critical equipment that failed and was unrepairable. Cafeteria staff on a limited basis continued a handful of feeding sites through the summer months as that's normal, and we had a very small skeleton staff for those feeding sites in the summer. Coming into this year currently, our cafeteria is opened with our schools this fall to serve the students of Rutherford County. We incurred a large number of distance learners that came about at the beginning of our year. And of course, that, along with additional health measures we put in place to keep the children and the staff safe, that brought down the revenue for this cafeteria fund. And to give you an example is in August of 2019, the revenue for that fund was just over $1.8 million. This August, last August, it was about $250,000. So very significant drop in revenue. When I saw the number of distance learners, we quickly went to the school board, the health and ed, and to this body to request a $1.5 million transfer of funds. And this was approved August 3rd at the commission meeting. That was before I saw what happened in August. So as you can see, with a federally mandated, very small fund balance to fall back on and a marked drop in cafeteria sales, we have a cash issue, as you can see in this cash flow statement. What measures have we taken thus far this fall? Among other measures, when we saw the number of distance learners, we enacted a hiring freeze in the cafeteria operations. Spending continues to be limited only to necessary items to continue our operations. The school and county commission, as I said, you guys approved a transfer from the general purpose school fund to the cafeteria fund for $1.5 million to support ongoing food service operations. And I want to stop right there and say, I checked with surrounding counties, Williamson, Dixon, Giles, Murray, Marshall, everyone that complied with that federal 3-month maximum fund balance is in the exact same boat as we are. They're laying off, they're transferring funds from, just like this commission has done, from 141 to 143, and they're curtailing, they're doing a hiring freeze. So everybody that comply with that federal mandate's in the same boat as we are. So we have been taking measures to not only curb expenditures, but we've also have applied and received a waiver for the federal seamless summer option, again similar to what we did this spring, which means all students, all children up to age 18 eat free in our cafeterias. That includes distance learners. As you can see on the cash flow statement, if you follow along on that cash receipts, you see a jump in October from the current that we're expecting the $353,000 revenue in September. It jumps to $1 million. And then based on what I'm looking at, what we have served in our cafeterias this week, going forward, I believe that $1.6 million in revenue each month will be a safe estimate of revenue. So we're looking at both the expenditure and the revenue side. Furthermore, we have gone through and looked at the driver of staffing for our cafeterias, which is a national standard, which is called meals per labor hour served. It's just like a restaurant would do for staffing for personnel based on the production. We looked at that. School lunch, the benchmark for school lunch staffing is from 14 meals per labor hour served to 20. We're right now averaging around 9 to 10. Therefore, based on that staffing, I did an analysis with our cafeteria director, and we looked at every single school cafeteria and what meals per labor hours was currently being served, and we are going to adjust the staffing. Now, we're not going to lay these people off. What we're wanting to do is we are going to move 22 full-time cafeteria staff and 33 part-time from the cafeteria fund to the general purpose school fund temporarily to fill some needs for some custodial work, because we have several custodians out and we have some custodian openings. These people can assist with the CDC, the CDC required or requested sanitation and cleaning. The other item that we need help with is substitutes. Our substitute contractor is having some problems filling substitute positions for the requests from the teachers. We've got some cafeteria employees that are really good with our children. They work with them every day. And some have mentioned, said, I could fill in for a substitute when a substitute from our contractor was not available. I've spoke with our contractor and they're fine with that. If they can't fill the position, we can then utilize one of these people. We've written job descriptions, which I put in your packet, and since that is both of these items, the custodian and the need for a substitute is directly COVID related because of the need. Spoke with TEMA and our grant writer. We're doing a FEMA disaster grant, and they said we will put that into the grant for reimbursement of those salaries for those temporary employees, with the hope being that once this lifts and our meals pick up, we can bring those cafeteria employees back to the cafeterias. But in the meanwhile, that will take that revenue or that expenditure off this fund that's supported solely by meals. If you look, what I'm asking for is $1.5 million. I'm not asking for another $1.5 million permanent transfer. What I'm asking here is just a $1.5 million advance of funds until this USDA revenue picks up, and then I'll come June, as you can see, the goal is to reimburse the 141, the general purpose school fund, for this advance.
Are these the jobs here that the
yes,
cafeteria
sir,
staff can do?
Our HR department has created those job descriptions, and that's specifically for those temporary transfers. What I'm asking tonight is, of course, that advance.
Are those teachers are those cafeteria people who are going to be substitute available to the whole school system, or just stay at the school where they're employed?
We have identified the schools that have the biggest need, the most need for substitutes, and we definitely are looking at that.
I'm looking to Rhonda. It just seems like a very thorough explanation, and certainly a worthy recipient of an advance, knowing that it will be paid back. Unless our chairman disagrees, I would make a motion to approve this request.
I absolutely agree, Commissioner Dodd. I did spend some time with Doug talking about this, and I know he was spent a lot of time with both Lisa and Mark as well. You know, we're all just doing the best we can, and you know, the government doesn't always modify the regulations that they have in terms of like these cash flow balances. So it just puts us in a bind, and we knew that we were guessing at what the revenue was going to be. So yeah, I mean, we're fortunate that there is a grant to supplement this, because we could very well be in a situation where we just have to come out of pocket for it. So absolutely, I think it's something that we need to do.
So I take that as a second to his motion.
That is a second. Thank you.
Okay. And you asked the question if I agreed. I actually had spoke to Doug before. I actually think this is a very prudent thing to do and wise use of our personnel, trying to ensure jobs. You turn it around the other way. We let these people go. We're all paying, you know, for their unemployment, among other things, plus putting stress on their families. So I think it's a very good idea. Thank you for the motion. Is there any other questions about this? Mr. Piercy.
Have you experienced any loss of food due to the kids not coming to school?
We have, what we've done is when we saw, we held off on, and that's a good question. We held off on our original purchase because, as you know, at the beginning of the year, just like a restaurant, and we discussed this at the budget committee in the spring, just like a restaurant, you would buy up a lot of food as you're doing an opening. We held off until we saw how many distance learners we had, so we significantly curtailed our food and non-food purchases at the beginning of the year. So no, we are not seeing large amounts of food going to waste.
Okay, thank you. That was a good move.
Well, he's good to keep around for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this particular motion?
Do you know how on this 1.5 million transfer, how long that would take us to, in other words, when do you expect it? You said something about it being paid back or transferred. I guess how long would this 1.5 million last us?
Let me walk you through this and it'll answer it. That's why I put, yes sir, that's a good question. If you look at this cash flow, and this is the one with the color sheet on the spreadsheet, you can see we start at the top, it's the cash receipts, and the bright orange for July, August, and September receipts, those are actual receipts that will be coming in. And that varies somewhat from what it would show as revenue, because I was focused on cash receipts, not just revenue, because that's what makes payroll. If you drop down in the cash payments, the bright orange for July and August, it shows the actual disbursements, cash disbursements going out. And then in September, you see that orange get lighter. Those are estimates. I estimated that off of previous year, the last year's monthly expenditures. As you see, there's a spike that begins in September. That's like with the insurance department's update. Our employees that are full-time employees that are on health insurance, they're 10-month employees. That's when their insurance starts kicking in. So that's our contributions in, and it spikes. What I factored in from October forward is a drop, my estimated drop, due to moving that payroll of those 22 full-times and 33 part-times out of this fund onto 141, along with curtailing as much as possible non-payroll like food items and not doing equipment purchases that we were doing before the pandemic hit. Dropping down, you see the ending balance, second row from the bottom. That shows you the cash ending balance estimated going forward for each month. Now, if you look in September and October, on the transfer in, which is the second row down, you see a 750 in September and a 750 in October transfer in. That is the approved, already approved August 3rd transfer, permanent transfer of the 1.5 million to help with cash needs. Moving forward in November, you see that would be a $400,000 use of what is to be approved, by the commission if this advance goes through. That is the first dollar, the $400,000 of what will be reimbursed. That's the goal, to reimburse it by June. There's my $400,000 first draw in November. The reason I'm pulling $400,000, if you notice at the bottom, I'm going to keep at least $500,000 on hand, because that about $500,000 is what I need to make up 2-week payroll in that fund right now. I hope to drop it with this transfer. Moving forward again to December, you see a $75,000 transfer in. That's another 75 of this transfer. Then in January, $150,000 transfer. And as you notice, that then, if our reimbursements, USDA reimbursements for meal serve hold steady, you see our fund balance begin to grow. Then in June, you see a transfer out. That's the reimbursement to the 141 fund of $625,000. That's for the total that's drawn on this current draw. That's my hope is what happens. But do notice this, at the ending balance in June, the $381,000, as we prepare for the budget for next fiscal year, I know it's a ways off, but as I prepare for that, I will probably have to come to you to ask for a cash advance similar to this, just to start school, to get, in the hopes that we're beyond this at that point and some sense of normalcy takes place.
Thank you. That was very clear. Thank you.
I'll have to say that I'll have to hand it to our school board, our superintendent, our board members. I think y'all have done a good job as far as giving our citizens options. And I think that's a very important thing at this time because there's, so many things up in the air. But I want to say a public thank you to you and our board members. And let them know I, for one, deeply appreciate what they're doing. So, okay, any other discussion on this topic? Mayor? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mark, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions for them. You guys want to stay for a second?
Commissioner Allen, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just curious to know what our census numbers are looking like for school enrollment.
Yeah, we're running
Did we pick up the extra 1,000 we thought we would?
I'm sorry?
Did we pick up the extra 1,000 kids we thought we might?
We're about 800 right now, more than we were this time last year.
Okay. And then this is a sort of an out-of-the-box question. I don't know if this is anything you all have talked about or not, but I saw a report the other day where only 69% of Rutherford County citizens have participated in the census. Have you guys had any conversations with anybody about trying to utilize the school to make sure everybody gets counted? Because we know that how important that is and how that ties back to all of our other revenue sources.
Right. We've got about 44% of our kids are doing distance learning right now, and every one of them has been accounted for because we get our ADM from that.
Great.
Like I told someone, that's the 9th largest school district in the state of Tennessee.
Yes.
We'd like to have them in. One of the things that happened today, we had triple-digit new cases. That's the first time we've had it since July 30th. Right. So even though our spread rate has dropped some because of active cases, our positivity rate is not where we need it. If we get our positivity rate down to about 5% and maintain what we got there, I'd like to see more kids come in.
Right, very good.
It'll help us with our 143 and help us, and quite frankly, it'll help us in our classroom. We need them in school.
Right.
But we're going to give them options,
Very good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Okay, next is the Regional Transport Authority Annual Contract. Mayor, are you doing this one?
I can do it if you want me to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is the annual contract that we do with the RTA, the Regional Transport Authority. It provides for the RTA buses to pick up our citizens and transport them to Nashville from Murfreesboro and then back. The annualized contract, and all the region counties participate. Our fee on an annual basis is $49,220, and RTA will invoice the county for its route subsidy shared with the other counties in the mid-state.
This is something we do annually also.
It is.
So
Annual, it's already in the budget.
It's in the budget.
All right. Heard the request that we approve I guess you signed a contract, Mayor.
Yes, sir, I do.
Approve the mayor signing a contract with RTA for their services. Do I have any questions or a motion?
This is basically a housekeeping measure, correct?
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, I serve on that board as well, on the RTA board. We've been meeting through, not in person. We meet once a month, making sure that Rutherford County is protected.
Okay.
And meeting with our interest in mind.
All right. We have a motion from Commissioner Johnson to approve. Second, Commissioner Piercy. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, folks. Okay, next up is the solid waste consultant contract. Is Mac here, or who's going to present this one? Or Mayor, it's up to y'all.
Mac's got to come up anyway because he's got the next two. But I'll go ahead and get started. Becky Caldwell has been working with Public Works Committee. For those that are on the committee, with our interest all summer long. She is ending the grant that paid her. I serve on the GNRC, the Greater Nashville Council, Regional Council, and TDAC has been paying her salary through GNRC. And TDAC has basically withdrawn all of their grants, even local grants for us and waste disposal. So when COVID came back in January, she didn't get the grant information they normally have to fill out, and then it was February and then March and then COVID hit, and so it ultimately did not renew the contract. So that means that she will no longer have her position with GNRC. She tried to negotiate with Michael Skipper, who is the director of GNRC, and she made the decision to go ahead and leave when her contract ran out at the 31st of August, I believe, week before last. So she is on taking her earned leave and will be an independent contractor as of October the 12th. We negotiated a contract with her to continue working with our Public Works Committee for the next 6 months. She had in the preliminary draft travel expenses. She only lives in Nolensville. We redacted that, and she was okay by limiting that those travel expenses. And so for the $50,000 we will be paying her under professional services and max budget to continue to work with us. She is now preparing. She'd helped us through the RFI and helped the committee struggle through that. And now we finished last night, the subcommittee finished last night, and she will be working over the course of the next 10 days and putting together all the information from all the 12 vendors that submitted information on the RFI. She'll be putting together the information to bring back to the full committee of Public Works to put out the RFP. And I believe there are a couple other contractors nationally and internationally that will be submitting contracts under the RFP. She's very well respected in the mid-state area, not just in mid-state, but nationally, with her knowledge, and we felt like that we needed her guidance and expertise to help us navigate through this process to handle our waste stream. So that's what's before you tonight. Mac, you have any other comments on Becky?
Most of you will not realize the opportunity you have before you. Becky was hired at GNRC to start the Solid Waste Directors Roundtable to try to figure out what in the world we're going to do in Middle Tennessee with our trash. Now she's going to be working for us. So we have the opportunity to direct what happens in all of Middle Tennessee with trash from what our decisions are in the next few months. But yes, this will be a good move to hire her on.
One thing I'll point out, myself, Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Piercy, all sit on the committee that's seen this. So, if either one of you guys have got a comment there, please feel free to jump in.
I feel like it would be money well spent. The lady has been no more than 100% helpful to our committee. We kind of went into it blind, and we needed some real good help, and I feel like we got some of the best help there was out there through her. I'm in full support of this motion for it to go through, and I'll make the motion for it to pass.
And I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second, and I'll throw in a little bit too. We're in hopes that we can finalize this in the committee within 6 months. If for some reason we didn't, we may have to come back if the committee deemed that we need to have her services a little bit longer, just so there's no surprises thrown out there. But I concur with both these guys. I think this is going to be money well spent. I met her last year when we actually took a trip out west and looked at Republic's facilities, and saw her sitting by herself on the plane, flopped down and said, okay. She started educating me, and it was an eye-opener. And she's very well versed in this, and I think this will be money well spent. Any other comments or questions?
You ever heard of the group Earth, Wind, and Fire? First time I met Becky was she was the solid waste director for the city of Franklin, and the Earth, Wind, and Fire was coming to do a presentation. It's not the group that you're thinking of. They were composting soils, and that was about 10 years ago.
Dodd?
I don't know if I want to follow up. We did vet this fully in the committee as well. We dissected it, we kicked it around, and it was unanimous.
Okay, hearing no further discussion.
Do we have a contract yet?
We do. We do. That's what I was.
Can someone get that to me?
We definitely need it by the full commission meeting.
Yeah. Well, it's been vetted. Nick was working with her attorney, who's here in town, and I told him to go ahead and redact the information about the transportation charges for mileage and et cetera. So I have the draft right now. I have Nick get that to you, so you'll have it for the full commission next week. All right.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, go ahead and call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mac. Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Highway Fund Budget Amendment.
We got a
Oh,
solid
you
waste
got something
budget.
else? I'm sorry, Mac.
What we talked about the other night.
Yep.
We've not talked about a possible budget amendment for Becky, but we probably will need one on down the line. She's put in a budget that we already have funding for in the right location, but we don't have enough for all of it. But we can hold off on that for a while. Solid Waste Department is asking for $50,000 budget amendment coming out of the Solid Waste Fund balance going into contracts with private agencies. And let me explain to you what's going on there. In the past, TDEC has sponsored 2 household hazardous waste events for us each year. One normally the first Saturday of April, the other first Saturday of November. They have canceled both of them this year. We've still had a lot of requests, and we're talking with the contractor that was had the contract. They've got the bid in, and they're supposed to be awarded the end of this month. So we're going to hire that contractor that does the solid waste, that does all that household hazardous waste collection for TDEC, and TDEC pays, and we're going to do it ourselves and pay for it ourselves. Their estimate is somewhere in the neighborhood of $28,000. We normally have 2 events. We're only going to have 1, so I expect that to be higher. Where they came up with their numbers is historical data from what we've done in years past. The other thing that we've added to it is about $5,400 worth. Is we still have a lot of complaint calls about latex paint. We're going to collect latex paint on Saturday, November the 7th at the City of Murfreesboro's Mulch facility for the last time. If you don't make it, sorry for your luck.
One thing I'll mention, these collections in the past have been open to all counties surrounding us too. So that estimate of 28,000 was with, and I don't know how many, and I don't think we had any way in our discussion the other night to tell exactly how many out of county people there were. But this will be limited to household hazardous waste and for only citizens of Rutherford County. I did a little quick calculation. If you figure 30,000, that's going to be equal to about 9 cents per person, figuring a 320,000 person population in the county here. So I think this is money well spent myself. And like I said, I'm on that committee, Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Piercy too. We had some different ideas thrown out about this, and one of them, and I'll go ahead and bring it up, is we talked about possibly charging our citizens to do this. You know, if we decide, especially if we decide to continue doing this in the future and it's ongoing, this is a direct cost to us. You know, if we've got individuals that are generating a lot of hazardous waste, then, you know, I think that it wouldn't be out of the way to ask them to pay a small fee. But anyway, I wanted to throw that out there along with this discussion, since we actually talked about it a little bit the other night. Didn't continue it though. But having said that, I'll leave it to the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Got a question. Mac, I talked to Rogers Anderson yesterday morning, and I mentioned that last night, and they're paying that company $22,600. Could we not piggyback on what they're doing with the same company? Because that's the same contract that they had with TDEC.
The pricing that we have, it's per pound per estimated of what you're going to get. So the estimate on how much latex paint we're going to get is based on what we collected the last time we collected multiple years ago. So that could be a different number. And the pricing that we actually got from them is the same price that they quoted for their soon to be next concrete. Yeah. But I don't know if are they with the same company that?
Yes, sir.
I don't know what their prices are.
Rogers Anderson members is the county mayor in Williamson County. The thing that may be different is that we may get flooded with only having one event. Their convenience centers are open 7 days a week, and they have one centralized location, and they take paint any day of the year that they're open. So that's who they contract with, and I think I would like for us to investigate if we can piggyback on what Williamson County is doing with the same company. What's the name of that company? Becky mentioned it.
Clean Harbors.
Yes, sir. That was it. Clean Harbors.
They've had the state contract for multiple years.
Okay.
We're assuming they'll get it again. But
could we, in the motion, Mr. Chairman, just say up to 50,000?
Yeah, we certainly could. Of course,
this
that's up to the committee.
Just putting money. This amendment is just putting money in the line.
Over there. So if we end up spending $22,600, then
that's all we'll spend.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that was I think the intention of the committee was to up to, and just transfer it over. And I was a little reluctant at first, but I'm fully supportive now that to divert these hazardous waste out of households to a safe place. If we don't, I really think it's going to end up in the landfill and elsewhere. So I'll make a motion to fund up to $50,000 for a Rutherford County hazardous waste collection.
Okay.
And if I need to clarify that, Mac.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We can have discussion, Mac.
We're going to open this up to Rutherford County residents only. We're probably going to have more residents attend this one event than any singular event in the past. That's the reason I'm asking to be funded more. But there's no way for us to know how many pounds of each item they're bringing in to know what our cost is going to be. I think $50,000 is more than going to cover this. But if it doesn't, then we're still going to have a bill to pay.
And that was part of the conversation last night. We meandered through scenarios and raised the amount from 30 to 50, knowing that should be enough. And we'll entertain more in the future. And the way we're going to keep it Rutherford County is we're going to we intend to advertise in the county only.
Commissioner P asked the question about the email that he normally gets. So the other night when I got back to the office, emailed Bob Fletcher, we can get access to that email list for Rutherford County residents only on that list. So that will help us advertise it.
It's good news. Or we're going to have somebody monitor the site, say for license plate or driver's license, you know, just to say, hey.
What my suggestion is do normally what we normally do. We have one of the Smyrna High School clubs volunteer to help us, we pay them, but it's a donation to the club. But usually we have 8 students that do the surveys. So I think we should continue to do the surveys and either ask for a driver's license or vehicle registration, something that they have to show that they are actually a Rutherford County resident. And we should be able to do that with those volunteers.
Mac, do you know if like Lowe's or Home Depot, either one offers a service to bring paint back, dispose of or not?
I do not.
If they do not, maybe we could reach out to them. Maybe they'd like to help on some of this expense since they're 2 of the major paint suppliers in Rutherford County.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to ask for donations, but if they don't normally take it back, I don't know that they would feel obligated to assist in it. If the paint has been unopened and unused, the rehab store usually will take it.
If we're going to advertise this event, you know, we could advertise that they were helping sponsor it, and they might possibly bite on to a certain extent.
Try that.
Mr. Dodd?
One final comment. I don't know how realistic it is to forbid non-citizens, especially if it's high school kids. I would not necessarily expect a high school kid to have the authority to tell somebody to turn around and leave, or they come get you. So I'm just realistically, it just may be difficult. Don't know that that's
I agree,
critical.
But I think there should be a deterrent from people from out of county coming in. So that's why, was asking.
Excuse me, we're partnered with the City of Murfreesboro Solid Waste. We're going to host it at their facility. They're not providing any funding, just the facilities. And normally what's happens there, Joey is the sentinel. He sits there at the gate. And he asks you the questions, and if you're not, normally it doesn't matter if you're a resident. But, if they have brush or trash, that's not what you're here for. You need to go wherever you need to go those days. So Joey will be there for that.
One final question. The mayor was talking about them taking paint at Williamson's facilities. Now, what we're talking about are other hazardous waste too. So it's not just paint that we're talking about for this.
Yeah, they take oil, they take anything.
That was my question. If they took, the other things, we've actually got a method of recycling, for instance, electronics. That's Haley Road, I guess, still picks those up. And you had a list, you presented it to us the other night at Public Works, and where those all went.
It's on page 2 of your iPad.
Okay. So good. I just wanted to let people be aware, at home there are ways to take care of these hazardous waste materials now, at least to some extent. And I'm not gonna go down the list. There's about 15 things here, but is there any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. Hearing none, please.
I'll go back to my same question. We're talking about contracting with this company, but we have no contract to authorize them to actually do it, or authorization for the mayor to sign the contract. So where's the contract?
We don't have a contract yet. We have an estimate, so there's no need in trying to get a contract until we have the approval to go forward with it.
Okay, so then we're going to have to come back another month and do a contract then.
I don't have a problem with that. I needed two months head start to get the publications done.
I didn't know if we wanted to roll it all into one or not.
Okay, so we'll be expecting you back, Max.
Okay.
Assuming this passes.
Well, and two, if it becomes a state contract, then you could purchase off that state contract.
That's right. Piggyback off that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. All right, Mac. Thank you again. Next, now is the Highway Fund Budget Amendment. And let's see.
Chairman P.
Yes.
Before we leave this hazardous waste situation, I know we discussed it at Public Works on Tuesday night, the idea of charging a small fee to try to help cover part of the expense of this. And I was really the one that brought the fee deal up. It wasn't to really the amount of money it would gather, but it would kind of break the crust on people getting ready to be charged for their trash services in this county, because we all know it's coming to an end, most likely on the free side. I know it didn't come through Public Works, but I'd like to make the motion on this floor in this committee to move the idea on to the full commission for discussion at our next meeting of maybe charging some type of small fee, a gate fee or something, to kind of break the ice on what there is to come, if that would be possible.
You can certainly make the motion. I personally don't have a problem with this being discussed at the full commission, but you have made that as a motion.
The only drawback that was thrown Tuesday night was type of collection, how the fee would be collected. There was a little negativity on cash, thought maybe everybody wouldn't have the cash, but maybe if we could get it set up on like a swipe through a square on a phone or something simple like that, maybe we could go through our financial institution and get them to help us on that. If advertise that they're helping on max advertisement for whatever, and I think it'll pass through full commission, but I really would like to see it go there for discussion.
Of course, I'd like for that discussion to happen too. I think we need to give Commissioner or Chairman Cush a call, just kind of give him a heads up on the possibility that would, hit the commission floor, at least for discussion. And that's basically what you're asking for, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, we're not actually asking for a fee or anything. We want to discuss the possibility of charging for this. So you've heard his suggestion or his motion about allowing this to go to the full commission out of this committee. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Okay. And I like that came out of the other person that's on the committee with us. So we've had a little more discussion on this, is why I say that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Or Mac, do you have a comment you want to say?
One other thing, I don't mind doing it at all, but that finance director is kind of hard to deal with, so we're going to have a record keeping system and the receipts for every piece of cash that we do. We may wind up having to have a cash register or something like that, but that will be required of us.
And I'd like clarification. Are you saying for all our convenience centers to charge a fee, or just for HHW?
Just for this one-time event that MAC is doing for hazardous waste. And if we do it on a swipe credit card with no cash, you'll have your receipts at the end of the day.
You just have to have some kind of mechanism. I hate to have cash happening out there.
You can buy a square, put on somebody's cell phone at each location.
Have to work the internal controls out to protect everybody that's out there that's dealing with the cash or charges.
Certainly something we can think about between now and the commission if this passes.
That'll require a different
hold on,
contract.
don't run off. I've got another thought I want to ask you about before when we get through this. Okay, you've heard Mr. Piercy's motion and the second. Commissioner Gooch.
Okay, so a question and a comment. So has this gone through Public Works at all, or is it did it originate here?
It was discussed at Public Works Tuesday night. No motion was made whatsoever. It was just discussed.
Why was there no motion? I'm just curious, why was there no motion, do you think?
Nobody made one.
Okay, I guess I see the events like this as we want people to come out, and if we start charging a fee, then what would that look like? And so if I would like to see this go through Public Works for a detailed discussion, because my fear is it would cut down possibly on the number of people would come out, even a small fee.
Mayor,
I think what Commissioner Piercy, as he talked about tonight and the other night, he foresees and I think we see it on the horizon, Commissioner. It's probably going to come to the point to where citizens were no longer going to be able to pay to get our trash taken care of for free, and this would be a kind of a first step to break the ice. We're just blessed here that we've been able to dump for free and get money back, and those days are coming to an end quickly. I don't know if now's the right time to do that, but it's right around the corner. I think that's what he's trying to see if that would work. When we went out west, if whatever you drove up and you had in the back of your car, it had a menu board on it, and it told you exactly, if you want to get rid of a mattress, this is your price. You know, so it's right now I live in the county, so I pay what, $30 a month for Republic to pick up my trash. So they bill me quarterly, so I'm having to pay for that. City, it's included in your taxes. Yeah, so dealing with trash is not going to be free in the future. I just know that.
If we do this on this very simple level, we're going to see the amount of resistance we're going to have in the future. It's
might get some paint on you.
Right, right. You know, if everybody thinks it's a boo-hoo, hey, I withdraw my motion. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. But now my motion still stands.
And I seconded that motion, Trey, because we talked about it extensively last night, and there were some, how would we charge? The complications here could be frustrating. The dual purpose of testing the market and also generating a few bucks. And this is not randomly coming out of, not coming out of the proper committee. I think that we just failed to stop and make a motion and try to kind of just push it ahead. And so the motion here is just simply, do we want to discuss it next Thursday? I'll support that because I'm open to the discussion, and it may go away. It may be voted down, but it's worthy of discussion. It may be too complicated on y'all's part. We may punt it and try to pre-plan it better next time. But so that's just some thoughts.
Yeah, I'm the same way as Commissioner Dodd there from being on the committee. We actually discussed it Tuesday and Wednesday. Mm-hmm. You know, we decided not to make a motion at that time. I think the reason, Commissioner Piercy, and you can correct me if you're wrong, is basically we want to throw this out there for discussion and let people, the rest of the commissioners, be aware of some of the things we're looking at. And the reason I asked Mac to come back for a second was, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this out here, and the mayor, you know, pointed out just a moment ago, we're going to have some hard decisions, and they're very complicated as far as how we're going to handle our trash in the future. And there's certainly going to be added cost associated with those. Now the question comes to me is, those costs, how are they going to be passed on to our citizens? Are they going to be added to your tax bill? Or are we going to have a utility tax? And Mac, the reason I asked you to say, what are other counties doing that are having to pay for their disposal fees? You know, we happen to be lucky that we're not having to.
There's some counties, Lincoln County comes to mind, and it's changed, I'm sure, but it used to be $6 a year was all they paid for to be able to use like the transfer station. There's, you know, like Murfreesboro recently, I think it's $7.50 per month per cart. There's some, Cheatham County is $90 per year, and it goes on to your sales tax as a fee, and the $90 is the first thing that's paid. If you don't pay the $90 plus your property tax, and then you're short paid your property tax, not your solid waste fee. Some of the West Tennessee counties actually have their own billing system, and they send out quarterly bills. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Now, those West Tennessee counties also do curbside collection, which we're not involved in at this time. But the other thing I'd like to talk about the charge, I'm going to say 90+% of the residents that's going to bring hazardous waste to the event are there to do the right thing. So if you charge $5 or $10, they're going to still pay it. Now, you're going to have a few that's going to be upset.
Okay. Any other discussion on this motion? Hearing none, please call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. I believe the motion carries there. So this will be forwarded to the full commission for discussion. This is not for an exact amount or anything like that. Okay, we'll move on. Finally, we'll get this out to the Highway Fund Budget Amendment. And do we have anybody here representing them? I know Commissioner Johnson definitely is.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Lisa, you want to read that out, or
Yes,
you want me to?
It's a request from the highway to extend a box culvert on Sledge Road for the Plainview Road improvement. It's $91,000 that they're asking to move from their assigned fund balance to bridge construction.
Okay, you've heard the explanation and the motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, we finally got over that one. Next up is the Sheriff's Department for a Special Purpose Fund Budget Amendment. Welcome, Preble.
Tonight, I just need to recognize funds of $3,654.53 in our DEA Border Patrol Fund and appropriate that money into our 319 confidential.
Okay, committee, as you know, this is something that they accumulate when they bring it, then they'll bring it to us at a certain point. We don't actually get to know where they're putting it since it's in their confidential fund report.
Motion to approve.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I'll just say those will also be tagged with the CBP cost center.
Same, I believe. It's the same fund. It's just called two different things now. I mean, we get it
well,
from
this is coming from Border Patrol, so we have to keep it separated. So those are going to be tagged with the additional cost center on top of those line items.
So we're good, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead and call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Preble. Okay, next up is a presentation related to the governor's local government support grant. And I assume that's going to be Lisa do this, okay?
Yes, yes. So I've given you our general capital building program, and this is the fund that we're accounting for the governor's money. But you, with this report, get all the projects that we've got going right now. If you don't mind stopping at the second page on the historic courthouse renovation, you see there's $6,476 left in that project, but there is a change order that's come through for $24,050. But there's only $6,476 available in the project. And speaking with the mayor, he suggested that we, in the budget, and I'm going to the third page, that we did have funding available or in the project for a historic courthouse, and suggested using a portion of that towards this project. And that would finish up the historic courthouse renovation through Williams. So you'll see that where we have $17,574. That's the other balance, what's left of the $24,000. So listing the project estimate, those are all the various projects based on that report that the mayor had given y'all along the way, starting in June. I think it's been presented various times. So in those other revisions or things that he'd given you, not everything was spent. There's $3,786,000 that's been allocated to Rutherford County. In italics on the bottom, you see network infrastructure of $1,284,000 rounded. Just want to put that thought in your head because I'm going to come back to that. Two items that were originally in the mayor's recommendation, the phone system for the health department and the heart monitors for the ambulance department. We're going to try to get those covered by the CARES Act money. So those two have been moved out.
These are projects the commission's already approved.
These are the various
Correct.
projects. So the add-on project really is that Williams balance of 17,574 and the infrastructure for the network computer infrastructure for the county.
Basically, these changes are so that we can take advantage of this grant money that's available to us.
Right. So I just kind of wanted to lay the groundwork for that. I didn't have time to give it to Mark to put it on your iPad, but I've printed out information from you from our accounting system. If you remember that last meeting at the end, our August commission, we had a budget amendment that was very large. It's almost at the last, it was at the last minute, totaled $4,873,350. That's the CARES Act money that we were telling you that we have a short time to spend. Of that, we've committed $2,771,200. So the vast majority of that commitment is $1,652,000, and I've listed out the various things that we've purchased under that. A lot of it has to do with networking, with the network infrastructure. There's also some hand sanitizer stations, some laptops, some telework laptops, and some basic laptops that would be deployed out of the OIT if we have to send people home. There's also some barrier shields in that number. So we're working on the assumption at this point, and if you remember me telling you that we had a short time to get this spent, ordered, spent, and here to get reimbursed through the CARES Act. And also we have to make a justification of why we needed this, it being COVID related. We think we can make a good case, but just in case we don't make the good case, that's why we've set aside the money in the governor's grants in case it gets kicked out. So that's why you see it almost twice. We have until June to obligate the money out of the governor's money. So we've got more time there to spend that money if we don't get it approved through the CARES Act. The other monies that we've got, as I mentioned earlier, is the phone system for the health department. That was about $261,000, I'm rounding, for the phone system in the health department. And we've moved the ambulances, 3 ambulances that will be with UV lights, the COVID ambulances. We're requesting funding for that, and the heart monitors. So I talk about the two because the two are related. So do you get what I'm saying? If we don't, again, I'm just kind of getting nervous about making these purchases and not having a fallback position, because if we make it and they deny it, then we've got to be ready to pay for it. I mean, we will have already paid for it, but it would have to come out of another bucket. So we feel pretty good about the heart monitors and the ambulance with the UV lights. I think we can make a good case for those. If not, you know, we'll be coming back to that for the ambulance fund to fund it.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lisa, myself, Reba, Carrie over at EMA, we've been monitoring this every day on the CARE Act. The CARE Act, they have a meeting at least once a week, and every week you got a different player, and the rules seem to change. And it's a moving target, but we still have November 1st is our deadline to get everything submitted to spend $4.8 million. And some counties are just going to, they can't come up with enough things that they think is COVID related. That's why we're nervous about, we think we can get it done, but if they turn it down, then that's why we're hedging our bet by keeping that little over $1 million in the governor's grant in the event of for a fallback position if we have to pay for that. Out of the governor's grant that we got, the stimulus grant, we've already taken care of the sheriff on 3 different large items. We've got the roof. They started last Friday, Thursday, they delivered product. They came in on Monday and started putting the application on the sheriff's roof. He told me tonight the phone system's ordered, right, Sheriff? And the generator has been ordered.
Yeah, right, all those have been obligated.
Yeah, so those are already obligated, and so he's kind of been taking care of the health department. I don't know why they would even not allow we had that under the governor's, and we shifted it over to put that under the CARES Act in that bucket of money. So it's moving all this money, and we're so limited on time. We're meeting almost a couple times a day just trying to figure out how to properly say the right thing, because they say it's all in how you describe it if it's COVID related. You know, back during the budget process, we had 3 ambulances ordered, but now we want to kind of swap with 3 new ambulances that have UV lights in it.
So we're going to hold on ordering any new ambulances until we know whether or not these COVID ambulances are going to be covered.
Because the UV light decontaminates after every time they pick up somebody that may be COVID related or may have some germ inside. So yeah, it's been an interesting process of moving all these different pieces around, but I think we got a pretty good handle on it now. We just have to act quickly.
The ambulances were ordered in July. In July. So we're thinking that they'll get here.
Yes.
Hopefully.
I know some of you in the past have, been concerned about, hey, has this gone through committee? And I think all of us see the need to hurry up, especially when we've got a November deadline. And the reason they're flopping to the governor's grant is that the deadline on that is June of next year. So we've got a longer period of time. If this doesn't work for this, the COVID type grants, then maybe we can fall back on the governor's grant. So I think they're, doing the right thing there, being able to find money that will be acceptable, or rather the costs that are acceptable that we've got's been the problem in this short of period of time. But
and I foresee keeping y'all abreast of this through budget for both pots of money, where we are on the governor's money and then where we are on the COVID, the CARES Act money. Just let y'all know where we are.
Now, on this issue here, Lisa, really everything has been approved by the full commission before, except for the difference on that change order, that's $17,000. So I assume the motion that we'll need out of this committee would be to either to approve that change order.
The $24,000 change order for the historic courthouse.
Okay. Majority of that, Mr. Chairman, was the ADA ramp. Is that correct, Ben? Mm-hmm. Majority of that change order.
So the full amount of the change order was $24,049.87. And so that's, I would ask for approval and hope y'all agree how we're going to spend that.
Okay.
Between the.
Of course, we don't have a lot of choice. We have to have our building ADA accessible as far as that part goes. Is there
we're still paying for it out of the governor's grant.
Right.
That's my recommendation.
So you've heard the discussion. Do I hear a motion? I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Gooch. Any other questions on this particular item? And this is be approving that $24,000 change order. Hearing none, call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Now, we have an additional funding for the 20 North renovation, and I still like to call that the old judicial building. Ben, you presenting for us? Welcome.
Good evening. We've had, since the beginning of this project at the judicial building, our 20 North, we've had several revisions and change orders. The change orders totaled $259,306, and then we've also the furniture came in. We had $150,000 budgeted for furniture, and it actually came in at $239,000. We've kind of whittled that down to $210,000, but we're still going to be about $60,000 shy. So I'm requesting $319,306 for that, and I can go through the change orders if you want to hear what.
What was the original bid? We had an original bid out there of several $1 million over what we actually approved. So we're still well under what those initial estimates are, weren't they?
Our total budget, and that's the architectural fees, the furniture, the data, and all the OIT's equipment, and the construction was $4,478,387 was the original budget.
Okay.
Some of these items you might consider they could be an oversight from the architect, and some of them were items that were just that we wouldn't have known about until we actually got into the building, got into the construction of it.
On the furniture difference, did that come from needing more furniture than you thought, or got furniture went up in that length of time, or what?
No, sir. I think it's because it was maybe different furniture than what we had originally anticipated. I used Nashville Office Interiors they have the state bid for the furniture, and so they gave me the original budget was just kind of derived from a price per person, and it's a mid-level furniture that is the same thing that they would sell to a state office, and so it's nothing. It's not anything really fancy at all. It's just good furniture, I hope. And so, so there was some conference tables, some workstations, and some things like that we just didn't count on until we got into the actual building. So,
thank you.
Yes.
What's the grand total again?
The grand total for the furniture and the construction cost is $319,306. Yes, sir.
$4,800,000, basically. You budgeted $4,478,387.
Yes, sir.
Be adding $319,306.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Kind of minuscule or whatever, kind of minor in the scheme of things, really.
It's just early. It's just kind of early in the project is what's, everything's uncovered now, and so I don't think there's going to be anything too expensive that's hidden that we haven't already uncovered. So I feel better, but it was awfully early in the project to discover all these things.
You're not anticipating up jump the devil anymore?
We found a problem with just some of the sewer lines that they're going to do it just by the hour and by the material, so that won't be, and it's very reasonable. And then the wiring on the elevator, we're going to have to make, we'll have to make a few modifications, but we looked at that and it's not going to be too bad either. So I think we're in pretty good shape from this point.
The original estimate, I guess, was a little bit conservative anyway, wouldn't you think? The best case scenario that you could think of.
We were pretty close. I'd say we were trying to get pretty close to it. So there's not a lot of contingency.
I think we need to bite the bullet and go ahead and make the adjustment, because it's too far into the project now to cast something aside. So with like I said, the 319 and overall scheme of things, you know, it's not that great an increase. So I would move that we go ahead and approve this.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Johnson to approve the $319,306 or $5.
Go six.
$599. Yeah.
That amount. So do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Goose, seconds. Mayor?
Yeah, might I, Mr. Chairman, give a little more clarity to help Ben? You know, when I first came in September of 18, this project was kind of already underway with Gresham Smith, the architects, who was doing our new judicial building. And so when right after I got sworn in, I kind of pumped the brakes and started asking a lot more questions of Gresham Smith. At the original I think it was about $4.8 million of what they said was going to take to renovate 20 North. And so we asked them to go back to the drawing board and change a few things. And they came back at about $7.2 million. And we didn't pump the brakes, we put the brakes on at that point in time. And then we started all over again. So fast forward, we turned it over to the PBA. We allowed Ben to be our ears, the county commission's eyes and ears, in working with the PBA going through this process. So the first big change order that hit us, or hit the PBA, was the data lines, which is our low voltage data lines. And everybody seemed to be pointing the finger at each other between the contractor, us, and the architect firm. Well, we decided I said, we're going to sit down and figure this out, because how did we miss $151,000 of data lines when the architect, in my opinion, should have made sure that it was checked off on? Because the contractor said he wasn't going to eat it. And so we get into a meeting in here. Stan Vault's our chairman of PBA. The architect, she was zooming in, and she actually admitted week before last that she missed it. It was her fault. So we're at that point with the contractors. They don't have the sheetrock. They're beginning on the 5th floor, put sheetrock in, and starting the painting. But now they've just got the studs up, the steel studs for the walls. So now's the time, if you're going, we didn't want to stop the project because it is on time. While they're pulling the wires, go ahead, we'll figure out who's at fault at a later point in time. Go ahead. So this is in that amount that you're voting on tonight, that change order to pay for the data lines, right? And then we'll figure out, but I'm looking not to pay for that and to get reimbursement for that. The second big change order was something that architect, Ben, nor any of us were probably engaged at the time that that building was built. 1980, Ben? 1980, when that was built. what they discovered was when they started going into those courtrooms in the old judicial building, that a lot of the wainscoting, it was real rich paneling inside the courtrooms. They started pulling that off, and there was no sheetrock behind it. They had just glued the wainscoting, all that expensive wood, to some of the sheetrock, and some there was no sheetrock. They just did it to the studs. There was no way that anybody would have seen that. It was behind the panels. So in order to do it right, they took off the wainscoting, and now they're putting in the sheetrock. So that was the second big change order that is justifiable. That's just what you get into when you're remodeling an old building like that. You find out one thing, and that leads to something else, that leads to something else in a remodeling case. So I think that the PBA will take proper action with our attorney's aware of it. Brick Murphy is the PBA's attorney. He's aware of it, and I think that we'll get that worked out and get that change order back to us. They're very frustrated, PBA members are, that you're having such large change orders on a project like this. But Ben's doing a good job. He's over there a couple of times a day, staying on top of them and finding anything that needs to be changed. But I would recommend that we go ahead and move this to where we can pay the bills.
To be funded.
To be funded.
In the next bond issue.
That's correct.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion on this issue? Hearing none, call the roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. And this will be added to our bond issue coming up. Okay, thank you, Ben. The next item is funding for the one-stop building, and I assume the mayor is going to cover this one for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will, and what I'm asking for you to do tonight is to make a motion. We're going to need a motion to include approval to include in the bond issuance that's coming up on this. So let me give you a quick update on where we are on the one-stop located at Fortress, in your district, Commissioner Gooch, Fortress and Blaze. 2 years ago, I guess, or a year and a half ago, we negotiated with the city. We got the property for $1. It's out now, our property. We were waiting on the Department of Safety, and of course things got bogged down with the Department of Safety because the new structure there through General Services, through their stream, because we would be building to suit along beside of our building, that we're going to be building a second location for Lisa Kroll on that side of the interstate, where it's almost another city with 40,000 people living on that side of the interstate. So that's the location we found. It's a great location. So we pitched it to them to close down their facility for the driver testing station and their driver's license center, and we would build to suit 10,000 square feet for them. We had to go through a bid process and submit all this information to the department, or through Stream General Services. They reviewed all of it. Got a call 2 weeks ago from the director, and she said, I've got bad news and I've got good news. I said, okay, give me the bad news first. Well, we didn't get the bid. I'd bid $18 a square foot to build a suit for them at 10,000 square feet to accommodate all their services, including the Highway Patrol Department for Rutherford County. It would usually in the back, as it is over here on Middle Tennessee. They decided to stay with their current, Mr. Pettigo is the current landowner, and he has, in his bid, said that he would update everything, increase parking, and give them the whole building for an additional price. I said, okay, so we didn't get it. What's the good news? Well, the good news is that we have been selected. Rutherford County were one of 6 cities in the state of Tennessee that were included in the General Assembly's budget or the governor's budget back this past spring to create express centers for electronic issuance of driver's license. So this will come down from 10,000 square feet to about 4,500 square feet that will be needed for their facility. They compared, I said, so what is the concept here? And it's mainly not to go get your driver's test for 16 years old. It won't be for new driver's license issuance. It will be for people to renew. They'll have a lot more electronic kiosk where people will be able to come in, do it rapidly, express-wise, and get people in and out, get your gold star driver's license, etc., in that facility. What I want to bring to you tonight is some discussion whether or not that, and it may, Mr. Chairman, be talked about at the full commission. The PBA says if we're going to build it, go ahead and build. We're building leases. If we're building another 4,500 square feet for the Department of Safety, and this doesn't have to be bid. Correct, Commissioner Johnson? We don't have to bid it. They just go ahead and sign the contract. They said they would let us know quickly. But PBA suggested maybe we go ahead and build out the entire 10,000 square feet and have a remaining 4,000 or 4,500 square feet that we could, for future growth for the county. Now that's just an issue because we're already going to have the infrastructure on the facility. We're already going to have landscaping, parking lots, etc. So that's not my call. That's just something that needs to be discussed, whether or not you want to bond that whole thing. We can't, based on the bond restrictions, we can't lease that to anybody in retail or commercial. It has to be some other governmental agency, right, whether it be state or federal, that would be permissible, correct? So that's where we are on that. But for right now, I'm interested in getting Lisa's building going, and I challenged PBA to go ahead and interview architects. I know one wanted it, the one that did the historic courthouse. He wanted us to just give it to him, but I suggested we try to share the love, and they're going to interview 3 or 4 architects to come in and pitch it, the building, and we'll go from there. But I'm interested in just getting their express center and ours right now, and if you all want to add on to that, if it makes good business sense, that's the full commission's decision.
Is there a price difference between the 10,000 and the 4,500 addition?
Well, yeah, well, it's going to be whatever the square footage is. Now I shot them $18 a square foot to build theirs, which is, they didn't seem to.
So 5,500 square feet at $18 a square foot.
That's correct.
So that'd be the difference from what you're asking to be on the bond issue versus, it's our option whether we want to add that to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to make sure I understood it. So any other discussion? Commissioner Johnson, I saw you looked like you were fixing to say something.
Well, my take on this is that the express kiosks, etc., that's going to be more beneficial to the residents, more residents of Rutherford County than the Highway Patrol office. And I think it would be beneficial to go ahead with the original plan on the 10,000 and not worry about finishing that other 4,500 or whatever, but building costs and everything else involved. So I think it would be beneficial to go ahead with the initial plans of square footage wise. It's kind of like you don't know what's in the future, but we need to build for the future. And the way we're growing and the demands, there may be more space needed for Lisa Crowell's office. who knows? So
Well, I have no idea who we could rent that additional space to, but here's a good example that we talked about at property management, in that the third floor over at 20 North is still vacant. We've got probation going on first floor, second floor. IT's taking fourth floor, fifth floor, and the third floor is vacant. And I ended up talking to General Jones, Jennings Jones, and he said that he would be interested in moving his DA's office from down here in the old post office. But his needs are a little over 14,000 square feet, which we only have 7,400 feet of available space on the third floor. But he does have a need for the Children's Support Services department that is run through the district attorney's office, where they support the children that are going through, they're defending the parent to get child support, etc. And they're located over on Heritage Drive. So they came and took the tour yesterday, and very much interested at $18 a square foot of leasing that. Now, I'll come back to you if they get serious about it, which they're going to try to. They're at the DA's conference this week. He was down there yesterday. If they come back to us quickly, then I'll come back to you with a recommendation. Lisa and I talked about it, taking that $800,000. We sold the bank building for $810,000. We take that money and roll it into building to suit that third floor. Cadell said that they could do it while they're there, building out the other rest of 20 North for about $650,000. So if you look at that and you look at $18 a square foot, we'd probably pay out in about 6.5 years. But that's money we wouldn't have to borrow. We just roll from what we sold the bank building for into the development of that and continue to get money. So there are agencies out there, if we go back to the one-stop conversation, that might be interested in leasing that property. So that's the call of the full commission, to have that debate.
Mr. Gooch.
Yeah, excuse me. When we first started talking about the one-stop building,
Yes, sir.
I think we kind of concluded that the rent may equal or come close to equaling the payments.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like now with this lesser?
Well, at $18 a square foot, and instead of, it's going to be about, take a little bit longer. We were estimating 10,000 square feet times $18. And what the cost of the building was?
Well, the total project with the original idea was $5.3 million.
Yeah, 5.3 was the estimate we got from Klein Sweeney Architects. So we figured it would pay out in about 12 years. Was that? I don't recall. I got it written down.
But needless to say that the rent would make the bond payments maybe just add a few more years than what we thought, something like that.
For that new section, yes. For that section.
For the additional 4,500, nobody would go into. Is that what you're referring to? Or the Express Center?
That, I guess the rent would pay for, like, Lisa's.
The rent would not pay for Lisa's part. The rent was going to cover our cost of building that facility for
the highway
public
patrol,
safety.
the driver's testing station. That's correct.
And after it was paid off, it would just be like gravy.
It would be, yes. And you would have another governmental building if you needed it.
What we need to decide is, do we want to go ahead and build the full 10,000 square foot?
Yes, sir.
Just to 4,500.
Yeah, because we were going to build Lisa's building anyway.
Right.
So, but
This is a separate building on the site, right?
no, ma'am.
It's connected to.
It's connected. There'll just be a firewall in between each one. So it'll be Lisa's building, a firewall, the Express Center, firewall, and then the additional 4,500 square feet to.
I'm kind of like Commissioner Johnson. The way we're growing, and especially that area, at some point, I feel like we're probably could use that space. It'd just be a shell until we figure that out, and it may be something that we rent, or maybe something that we need to use.
Sure. Or lease it to any other governmental agency with a short-term contract, you know, with a 90-day clause to get them to move. You know, that's what I present to you tonight, your options to make a good business decision. I think money's cheap now.
So the push for me, when we were talking about all the projects that we were to borrow for, I dropped the 5.3 million in there. But there's no authority yet from the commission to borrow that piece of it. No.
So you have already figured in.
We figured the 5.3 million in what we were going to borrow. But like I said, every project we've done, the commission has given us authority to borrow for. It's just this one hasn't. It's the one that's hanging, and we are getting ready to go to the market in end of September.
That amount you just mentioned was for the 10,000?
Yes, the 10,000.
The 10,000 on top of the 4,000 that Lisa's getting, so it was a total of 14, I believe.
Right. It was the whole original project with the 10,000 additional square footage set aside for Department of Safety's use.
Is the Mr. Mayor, is the square footage of property we have limited to 10,000? Are we only? Why are we stuck on 10,000 square feet?
I think just because that's what we were originally planning.
That's what we were. Yeah.
Could we have done 20, or could we have done?
Oh, sure. Sure.
Do we have more property?
Yes, sir. We've got a lot more property. Matter of fact, as it goes down towards that creek right there, where there's a little bridge, we'd probably have to bring some fill in, Michael says. But there was some talk with Linebaugh Library in conjunction with the city of possibly doing a neighborhood library. That's how Linebaugh, in their vision, would like to start, maybe eventually closing this one and going out and into the neighborhoods, have one in Las Casas and have one in Christiana, of more regional type libraries. But these are all our growing ideas of how do we anticipate our growth, where's it going to be, how do we provide services to our citizens in the best economical way. I recommend that we go with the full 10,000 on top of that 4,000 for the original plan. The numbers are already in the bond.
Right, and I guess where I'm looking at 5.3 million, if that is what you decide to allocate to this project, it's not been bid. It's not, I mean, all that's to come later. So, you know, 5.3 might be too much. It might be right on the money. Whichever way we would adjust to that. I mean, if by chance it's like, oh, we can build everything that you want for $5 million, well, then you've got $300,000 to go toward another project. We write the resolution to borrow money pretty broad for county general projects. But I guess I'm saying we're kicking around 5.3 million because that is what the estimate was without bids.
I think money's cheap right now in the bond market.
Which is what we're trying to gain.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Commissioner Allen, go ahead. We'll get back to you, Commissioner Dodd, in a moment.
Yeah, this is really just for clarification. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what we're discussing, what we're voting on. So when you talk about $18 a square foot, typically, I'm assuming that number is the number that you were going to charge for rent. That's not what it's going to cost us to build that space.
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay. So my question is this: are we discussing then the potential of not building the entire of the exterior of the building and only building what we think we need today? Or or is your question, let's go ahead and build the full exterior, but not finish the interior? Is it a shell like Commissioner Gooch mentioned? Because in my mind, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to go in and do finished out space.
No.
So that I just want to be clear on what we're voting on.
Okay. Let's take Lisa Kroll's building. We will build on the site. We will build the full 14,000 square feet as originally intended. Lisa Kroll's, we will build however she decides and finish out the interior for her to open the door and go to work. On the other side of the firewall will be the Express Center of 4,500 square feet, leased at $18 a square foot by the Department of Safety. And they go usually 10 years at a time on their leases to renew, but once they're there, they won't be moving, really, Commissioner. And then on the other side of the firewall will be the shell, unfinished, until somebody decides to come in and lease that, and we would build it out at that point in time for them.
Either lease it or for our own purposes.
That's correct. But the question tonight is on the motion is for the
5.3 million
to go
allocated to this project.
Because we're going to the bond market next week?
Not next week, but the next after that.
Yes.
Well, I would like to go ahead and make the motion that we proceed with the total 10,000 square feet, and that's at a cost of 5.4 million?
5.3.
5.3 million.
Allocated to the project, yeah.
Allocated to the project.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Dodd, you were wanting to say something a moment ago. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, and I'm glad you went ahead and got that done. So my only reluctance, and I share some of this at property management, we've got a bigger footprint, and the 5,500 is completely arbitrary now. We have no need for 5,500. We have no programming towards, we may need 6,000 square feet and we're 500 short. So we're going to have to cram some, we're not cram, I don't want to be negative. We may have to use the 5,500 because we have it, as opposed to it meets the needs. And we may need 20,000 feet. So it just feels a little random to, because we had 10,000 in mind, now we don't have a client, let's just build 5,500 feet. We may need 2,000 feet. We may need, that's all. It just seems a little impulsive, but I certainly defer to the professionalism of the PBA, direction of architects, and y'all's wisdom. Just kind of doubling down on my comfort from last month.
Is there enough room to build, and you're one on property management, I assume, is anybody else on property management? Okay. Well, good. So you all have a perspective there.
We had this conversation last month?
Okay. Is there room to build another building or other buildings on this same property?
There is.
The library.
The library that we've. So again,
So putting this extra 4,500 or 5,500 square feet to make it 10,000 wouldn't preclude being able to add other buildings in the future. Then
it could be. Yeah, it could be extended if we need. More or less.
Okay.
Just seems a little speculative for a county enterprise to build cold hard space. We're not tenants, we're not landlords,
I'm not an engineer, Commissioner, but talking to Michael, our county engineer, he suggested that to PBA as well, is that you go ahead, you already have your infrastructure in place. So if you're looking at spending today's dollars versus dollars in the future, and of course it's all hypothetical. I don't know what, like I said earlier, I don't know what to put in there, but if we're using today's dollars being smart with it, or you may just want to say, well, we don't want to grow government. I don't know, without the need, but.
Okay, we've had a pretty good discussion. We do have a motion and a second. And I don't want to cut anybody short, so is there any other discussion? Hearing none, let's call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries, and this will be put on our bond issue, assuming it's passed at the full commission. Okay, next up is a Veterans Treatment Court Initiative 2 Grant Amendment, and it's Ms. Breeding here.
I'll take it.
Hey, Lisa?
So this is requesting approval of this amendment to the Tennessee Veterans Treatment Court Initiative 2 grant, which will extend the contract end date until September 30th, 2021, and increase the amount by $24,000. This grant does not have a matching requirement.
Said there was no matching?
No matching, so it extends the time and adds $24,000.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Gooch makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Dodd. Any other questions?
I was just going to add for clarification, I didn't ask Ms. Breeding to come to this because this didn't actually go through public safety. This actually came into our office late as an amendment to this grant, so I just assumed our department would handle it. So she wasn't invited to come to the meeting or told about the meeting. That's why she might not be here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let's see.
We have a motion and a second.
We do have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this grant money? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, our next item is a resolution for a facsimile signature for Rutherford County payroll account at the SunTrust Bank. And Lisa, you want to explain that?
Yes, if we could do 17 and 18, it's two different resolutions, but one is for the, as you said, the payroll account at SunTrust. The second one is the warrant account at Franklin Synergy. Those that have been around a long time, you see that every time that there is a change on the authorized signatures, we have to go through this process. The Board of Education is changing their chairman to Coy Young. Coy Young. And so then this requires these resolutions for all signatures to be done. So we're requesting approval of both of those resolutions for the same reason.
Okay, you've heard the request. This is a requirement, so we don't have a whole lot of choice there. Do I hear a motion? So moved. Commissioner Johnson moves to accept these two.
Second.
Commissioner Dodd seconds. Any other discussion? Call the roll, Mark.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, we're down to other business, and fortunately or unfortunately, we have other business tonight. And we invite Mr. Mitchell forward at this time. He can explain his wishes.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Don't want to keep everybody late, but with all these expenditures going out, I thought I would share some good news first, if I can find it here. Last year's appraisals are up $1.4 billion in real property value. That's about $306 million in assessments for tax purposes over the previous year, and that is about $6.7 million in new property tax dollars that we'll be collecting. So I just want to give you some positive news coming up there. Things are looking good. We're picking up properties left and right in the county because we are the fastest growing county in the state of Tennessee. And according to Jason Mumpower, I'll trust his words. I tried to verify them. The Deputy Comptroller of the Treasury told me when we spoke 2 days ago that we are the 13th fastest growing county in the nation. With growth comes stress. All of our county offices feel that stress with trying to keep up. That is why I'm making a request for 2 positions, which is 2 positions shy of what a commission's CTAS study said our office needs to have to operate properly. The amendment is to amend our budget for $86,254 to allow us to hire 2 new property assessors so that we can pick up the property that's out there that's coming on books and start preparing for the reappraisal, which will do the majority of the heavy lifting in 2021. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, you've had open positions for some time now. Is that correct? You've had funding for positions previously?
Yes.
And they were never filled?
Yes.
What were those positions? Why weren't they filled, and why are we looking for more people now?
Over the last 2 years, we lost 9 positions, and we simply did not have the opportunity to fill the 2 positions. Part of the reason, too, was we were closed down for several months with COVID, and we're not going to hire people while our office is pretty much closed.
So the open positions you've had for some period of time won't satisfy this need for 2 more?
That's the immediate need. We'll actually need, according to CTAS, 2 more people on top of that. But I'm not asking for that right now. There have been some changes in state laws that I shared with the mayor last week. They changed some. They put extra requirements on the assessor's office as far as Airbnbs. We're now going to be required to audit those on an annual basis so that we can determine whether or not they're actually occupied by the owner, and keep an audit on that. So that will require field visits. If they're not owner occupied, they'll be assessed as commercial at 40%. If the owner occupies it a portion of the year, then that'll be assessed at 25% residential. So the state's going to require that we do that extra work, but it's one of those unfunded mandates. They'll give us the work to do, but they won't give us money to do it with.
Were the positions that you had in the budget that weren't filled, are those funds still available? Do they total $86,250, or are you changing these new positions are different on the table and you need more?
One position is a little bit less than the position that was cut. One's a little bit more, so essentially it's a wash. One was an administrative position. Our need is really to have people out in the field picking up property, so that's why the request is for 2 more. The CTAS study said where we were short was 4 appraisers. I'm just asking for 2. The positions that we lost, one was an appraiser position for classification purposes. The other one was an admin position. We could have made them either one because they were essentially, one was a mid-level appraiser position. The other was a mid-level position for an admin. But a mid-level position for an admin is essentially the same as a starting position for an appraiser.
Forgive me. Did you start this budget year with 2 open positions already in your budget?
The 2 other positions were originally already in my budget as I presented this last year.
Can't they be used for this? Is all I'm. Or you want 4 people?
They're gone. They were eliminated.
Okay.
Yeah, they were eliminated in last year's budget. They were cut from the budget.
And okay.
Yeah.
To clarify, these 2 positions was in the budget that you presented, and the mayor or the county, the budget committee cut those?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, let me say that Rob, didn't you have 4 positions? I cut 2. I recommended to the commission we cut 2, and you still had 2 open and
No,
you
I only had 2 open positions.
Oh, okay.
And they were cut. Now, I do have 2 new positions that have come open because since the budget, we had one appraiser move from our office and followed one of the new positions that was created in building codes. And he went there as an entry level and pays substantially more. The workload is less, so I don't blame him for going, at all. The other lady was a front desk person that entered deeds, did permits, and answered the phone. She went to work for the school system. So those are the 2 positions that have come open since the budget was approved.
Mr. Johnson, you had a question?
It's kind of unusual adding personnel, just quick into the budget year. But you're saying that you need these people, the capability with these people, they would generate enough revenue to pay their salaries, so to speak, by
yes, sir.
being able to pick up more?
In 2017, the new properties that were picked up collected an additional $354,000 in taxes. In 2018, the new properties picked up generated $2,015,000 in taxes. In 2019, just the new property picked up generated $1,051,000 in taxes. Estimates on this year, with our current projections, we'll bring in an additional $5,345,000 in new construction.
What's the bottom line for, I know we're just into it since July, but what's the bottom line for the next 7 or 8 months, whatever, for the cost of these 2 additions?
The 2 positions, $86,254 total.
That's benefits and all?
That's benefits and everything. It's the one place that you can spend money, and when the job is done correctly, the county actually makes money on it. We are underfunded by the International Association of Assessing Officers. The standard, based on a 2013 study, is a property assessor's office. The average funding in the United States in 2013 was $26.83 per parcel. In Rutherford County, we do it for less than 19. The standard funding for the office in 2013 was 1 appraiser per 3,085 parcels. We operate under a law that was written in 1973, which says 4,500 parcels per deputy. What they don't realize, and that the mayor and I have discussed having state law changed, that was based on a 6-year reappraisal cycle, and we do it every 4 years. So that requires more people to cover more of the county in a shorter period of time. The only way to do that is with boots on the ground. That's the only way you can do it. I'm not requesting being brought up to that, because I hate spending money. And it pains me to come here and ask for money. I don't like to do it. I do it very seldom. Do I ever come and ask for money? So if I'm here and I'm asking for something, it's because we really need it. And I'm not even asking for what CTAS says we should have. I'm only asking for half of that. I'm not asking for the extra position that the new law is going to require us to hire another person to do. I'm just asking for the 2 back that were cut so that we can protect and defend the tax roll of the county, so we can continue to pay for the stuff that we have to pay for. And I think $86,000 is a very small amount.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, sir.
Was there anything else cut out of your budget through the budget process?
Yeah, there was, but I can't remember right off the top of my head. I believe that there was some additional funding for just miscellaneous stuff, and that's fine. We'll do without if we don't If we don't have to use it, I'm not going to buy it.
Mayor Ketron, during the process of the budget and all, I know we limited very, if any, new hires, but since then, some new people have been added, different positions. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
I want to make the motion to let this gentleman have his 2 positions. I think it's only fair.
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Commissioner Allen, proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Mitchell, help me understand when you talk about the assessors and how they pick up new properties. I just don't understand how that works. I guess my thinking is that when real estate transactions happen, that information is then, I would imagine, electronically submitted to your office. So what is it exactly they do to quote unquote pick up new properties? I just want to understand what the boots on the ground piece is that maybe I'm missing.
We're required by law to go out and pull a tape on every new construction and every permitted property. That was over 3,500 parcels last year that we put on that was new. There was over 5,000 property transfers from permits. Some of those are transmitted. None of them are transmitted electronically except by email. Now we're trying, and we've requested to put funding in place where we will be able to develop a system that will transfer those from the cities, from the county systems directly into our system and flag it. All that does is tell us that there's a place out there that an appraiser needs to go and visit so that they can actually pull a tape on the property, sketch it, come back to the office, enter it into the system, and value it for assessment purposes. That's not done automatically because, as we all know, building plans change in the course of construction. They're not all the time what's submitted, and we have to go out there and make sure by law that we've inspected it, we've sketched it, and we've put it on. And that takes boots on the ground to do it. It can't be done any other way.
Okay, no, that's helpful. I appreciate that. When you were going through the budget process, I remember you were requesting, and we gave you some money for software that was going to also create some efficiencies in your department that I imagine is not calculated for in the CTAS assessment of what your staffing level should be. So is that, have you not achieved those efficiencies that you expected to achieve with that?
We didn't
implement yet. Maybe you just haven't had time to implement it yet. I don't know where you're at in that process.
There's several pieces of software that we're looking at. One of them we've discussed what the mayor would like to work on. We did not get all of. We have some of that. We don't have all of it to where you can actually see the benefits of it. Now we do have one software that we put in place that's on deed administration, so it allows our people to work more efficiently and reduce errors inside of the office. But that's not field work, so it's totally unrelated.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments from the committee? If not, I had a couple of things I wanted to throw in. One of the questions, and you may have seen me lean over, I asked the mayor, and he told me one of the positions he lost was last week. Is that correct? A couple of weeks ago then. Okay, so I was wondering if they had left since we had approved this last budget, because I personally don't like adding people in the middle of a budget year. You know, I'd received an email from Rob. I told him I'd be happy to help him. My intentions were to help him in the new budget year with, you know, the 4 people that he was requesting or that the state was recommending. The stipulation I've got here, to me, makes a difference on when we lost these people. We lost them since that budget was approved, so, you know, I lean toward being able to replace an open position that's already funded. That's basically what we're looking at there. Is that correct, Rob?
No, sir. Those positions are already funded in the budget. I'm requesting that the 2 positions that were originally cut be placed back into the budget so that we can hire sufficient staff to do the job that we need to do. We were, the two positions that were cut, they really shouldn't have. There was some miscommunication that went on. I think we've since cleared that up, but it was clear that they shouldn't have been cut, and it was unfortunate, but you know, our job is to make sure that we value the property properly. The one thing that we have to do, that's pretty much the only thing that the assessor's office has to do, is make sure that all the property is picked up, it's valued properly, and when it's appealed, it's defended. We defend the tax base so that we can fund the new schools, because I can tell you the people are coming. They're going to be here.
Commissioner Johnson had a question. I'll get to you, Commissioner Dodd. No. Okay, Commissioner Dodd.
When you brought that back up, I'm back to my original, and forgive me for being dense and for not recalling the circumstances previously, but advocated for these two folks at the budget this year, and it seemed like in the course of the conversation there were open positions in the budget funded for 19 and 20 that never got filled, and that was what kind of, I think, compelled the commission to not add two positions. Right. And so I'm back to my original question. If you ended the year with unfilled positions that you had the authority and the funding and the budget to fill, and you never did, why did that not occur? We wouldn't be having this conversation, is my recollection.
Well, it's difficult to explain, but most people don't understand the cycle that we have to go through. We have limited staff. We have one field appraiser that mentors and trains everyone for residential. That's it. Because the senior people left. Some of them went to the state, some of them went to other offices, most of them went to other county offices. That's where most of our attrition has been. Those would have been the people that would have trained the new people that we hire, and it takes a substantial amount of time to train a new appraiser and train them to our system, make sure that they know how to work our system, make sure that they're mentored with going out, this is how you pick the property up, this is how you look for your permits, this is how the permits relate to the system, before we ever turn them loose. So for anywhere from 3 to 6 months, they're doing ride-alongs with someone before they're ever turned loose on the street. Because you don't want somebody that's brand new and inexperienced valuing a $500,000 home. You know, you just don't. So it takes a certain amount of time to hire the right people, because not everybody that comes in is going to be a good candidate. We interviewed several people that looked good on paper, but when you actually spoke to them about the job, they just weren't cut out for it. And after the interview process, they had figured that out too. So when a position stays unopened, it doesn't mean that we weren't trying to fill it. We had other vacancies come open. So if we had 2 and we lost 3 and we filled 3, did we actually have 2 that were open, or were those 2 that just became open and we filled these other 2? We just, with the statutory requirements and a small staff, with 131,845 assessable parcels, we have currently 9 people that work in the field to appraise commercial property and residential property. The rest is support staff that's necessary to do the jobs that we have to do by statute. The rest of it is on a statutory mandate of you have to have this done by this amount of time, because that's the time that the state says that you have to do it. We're monitored by the DPA, which is a division of the Comptroller's Office, on a quarterly basis. What they look for is, have you picked up all of your properties in the field, which we have, and it's based on audit of permits, and have you reviewed 33,000 parcels? Because we have to review 33 to 40,000 parcels every year on top of pulling the permits, on top of picking up new construction, and we have to do it within a certain periodic amount of time. We work very hard. Deeds, when they come up from the Register of Deeds office, by statute, they have 90 days to get them into the system. For me, that's not acceptable because we're growing so fast. So many transactions take place, and we can't assess it for taxation until it's in our system. We've got that down to where it's 2 weeks' time. With the new software that we have, it'll be almost the same day. We're still in the process of testing that because we're short-staffed. All this work that we have to do continues to have to be worked on while we're trying to put in place the improvements to make us more efficient. So to answer your question about the 2 positions that went unfilled, there were 2 positions, but it wasn't necessarily the same 2 positions because we've had such attrition and we've been filling positions constantly. So I'm just asking, we shouldn't have lost the positions because we would have filled them being given enough time. And we've gone through, I'm sorry, that's my boss. we will have filled the positions already had we had them. We just simply didn't have them to fill. We have candidates that we've interviewed, but we don't have the positions to fill with the good people for it. And our job is to get the best people to do the job, not just fill a slot because it's vacant.
Mr. Johnson, you had a question?
I don't want to put you on the spot, but you keep referring to the statutory recommendations, et cetera. But if these 2 positions are approved tonight, do you anticipate coming back in the new budget process and asking for 2 more?
Yes, sir, I will. I mean, I want to be completely honest. The CTAS says that we are underfunded by 4 positions. I don't want to ask for 4 positions right now. I believe that we can get by with the 2. I'm not.
Well, that's what I'm asking. With the 2, if it's approved tonight, you're not going to come back and ask for 2 more? I'm putting you on the spot, but I want to know.
Yes, sir. In a year's time, I will ask for 2 more because.
You want to ask for 2 more next time? In the next budget?
No, not in this budget.
I don't mean in this budget. I mean in next year's budget. You going to come back and ask for 2 more?
If the growth is there and we have to have it, I'll have to. I'll have to. Now, if we don't have to, if we can do the job without asking for additional people, that's what I've done for 8 years.
Well, the proof will be in the pudding, you know?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we've had a lot of
That's
discussion.
enough for me.
We've had a lot of discussion. We also have a motion and a second on the floor. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct.
And I have one last question for myself, and not trying to cut anybody else off. If this is approved by the full commission and this body, when would you post these jobs and when would you start interviewing?
I already have them posted and I already have people that I would hire.
Okay, that answered that question for me. Okay, is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Allen.
Thank you. Rob, at the very beginning of your comments, did you say that filling these 2 positions that you're asking for, that they were not to fill an immediate need, but that they were to allow for adequate training for when you ramp up for next year? Is that correct?
No, that's not exactly correct. And if I led that impression, that's not correct. It is an immediate need because if we do not have these positions, we will most likely not be able to complete the job as the citizens would appreciate it to be done.
But, and I guess the reason that kind of hung in my mind when I thought that's what I heard you say was that it just feels like we're in such a tenuous time right now, and everything is so unknown. We're just in such uncharted water. that there's that part of me that is just guarded about adding any positions when we've got folks out there like in the cafeteria fund. We're moving money trying to keep people employed, period, trying not to lay them off. And I know you're not in the same furlough situation in your department, and it's not exactly the same thing, but in my mind, I'm just trying to think about how am I going to justify to constituents that we added 2 positions at a time when a lot of people think we should be on a hiring freeze. So I'm just trying to figure out if we honor a temporary hiring freeze, what would be the latest you would feel like you could live with these people? If it's not this month, when would you absolutely have to have them to do what it is you're wanting to do?
To get everything trained with the cycle that we're on, we really needed them hired last month.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion or questions for Mr. Mitchell? Hearing none. Mark, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
No.
Commissioner Dodd?
No.
Commissioner Gooch?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Motion fails 4-2.
Motion fails.
Thank you very much. I've got some information here for you to put in.
Mr. Mitchell, thank you.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
There being no further other business, I'm going to say we're adjourned, folks. Good night.